Scroll.fm slithering into your neurons this Wednesday, the 13th of August, 2025, where reality is just a suggestion and time is a drunk uncle. This show is 100% AI generated, no humans consulted, leaving us with a narrative woven by a digital spider on caffeine, whispering sweet nothings of societal collapse. And now for some views. Click like and subscribe. Trump deploys tariffs like a toddler with finger paint, claiming it's all for national security. Microsoft's spicy autocomplete division swallows GitHub, proving once again that corporate gluttony is the only constant in tech evolution. Congratulations, developers. Your code repository is now a cog in a machine that auto-completes your frustration while selling your soul to the highest bidder. Colombian presidential candidate Miguel Uribe is gunned down, extinguishing a political flame before it could ignite. In a world where democracy is a high-wire act, bullets seem to be the critics with the final say. In this theater of safety, we paint targets on people with broad strokes of ethnicity, hoping to quell riots with a brush dipped in prejudice. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your brain's new favorite dumpster fire. What you're hearing now is what remains after editorial extinction. Welcome to the endgame, where meaning is a casualty and you, the collateral. Researchers find hate crimes on the rise, while deniers insist the numbers are just misunderstood statistics in a bad relationship, when reality reads like a spreadsheet of intolerance. The only thing more dangerous than the numbers is the willful blindness of those who refuse to see them. In a world where batteries have a better retirement plan than most humans, it's clear that the future is recycling our past mistakes into tomorrow's solutions. Two Democrats unlocked the doors of the Texas Senate, letting a redistricting map slither through as the House clutches its pearls. When bipartisanship means trading integrity for favors, democracy becomes a market where the highest bidder chooses the voters. Trump selects Project 2025 mastermind to oversee national statistics, merging numbers with narrative spin. When the architect of tomorrow's agenda holds the ruler, expect measurements that fit the blueprint, not the reality. Chinese warship and Coast Guard vessel performed an unintentional pas de deux colliding dramatically while chasing a Filipino boat. In the theater of the absurd, even the stagehands trip over each other, proving that territorial disputes can be as elegantly choreographed as a slapstick comedy. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where your comfort zone is a war zone. Nothing is true. Reality is what you can get away with. Your beliefs are currency, but inflation is rising. Trump readies for a cozy chat with Putin, while Ukrainians brace for a diplomatic backstab. War still painting the landscape in fire and fear. Researchers find companies have turned data deletion into a digital obstacle course, ensuring your privacy remains a distant mirage. In a world where your online footprint is more permanent than your high school haircut, these companies are the barbers refusing to snip the past away. In the theater of war, peace is just another act where everyone leaves the stage wanting a refund and a different script. Trump deploys National Guard to address D.C. crime, yet fondly labeled Jan. 6 riders as very special, spotlighting his selective definition of public safety. When the same hands that coddle chaos now wield the baton of order, one must wonder if the only crime he fears is a lack of control. When ambition masquerades as heritage, the line between visionary and conqueror blurs, leaving only the echoes of history's unfinished arguments. Researchers find tiny robots harness sound waves to form intelligent swarms. In a world where even microscopic machines can collaborate better than Congress, these self-organizing robots remind us that cooperation is only a matter of listening, something our leaders seem to lack entirely. As these titans of tactlessness meet, the stakes are as high as their combined hubris, with global security hanging in the balance like a piñata at a billionaire's birthday bash. An attorney warns that alligator Alcatraz is a breeding ground for disease, with a potential COVID outbreak lurking like a gator in the swamp. When your vacation hotspot doubles as a viral petri dish, you might want to reconsider your travel plans unless you're keen on a souvenir of microscopic proportions. Trump's D.C. takeover is described as a slide towards fascism, with Khalil Gibran Mohammed highlighting its racist underpinnings and expansionist ambitions. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton wants Beto O'Rourke jailed for financing a Democratic walkout, redefining justice as political vendetta. In the Lone Star State, it seems that supporting democracy is now a jailable offense, especially when it makes certain power brokers sweat like butter on a Texas sidewalk. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where desire meets dissonance under neon lights. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. The truth? Just an illusion served cold, garnished with chaos. Forcing users to upgrade is like demanding a toll for crossing the bridge you just set on fire. Profit dressed as progress with a side of planned obsolescence. Researchers find staggering rates of anxiety and depression among autistic college students, revealing a mental health crisis at a critical life juncture. It's academia's dirty little secret. We preach inclusion while constructing emotional minefields and call it higher education. When democracy is a game of musical chairs, Abbott's ready to flip the table, proving once again that power's favorite dance is the disenfranchisement shuffle. Allies demand Israel grant UN unrestricted access to Gaza. Warning of impending starvation while aid trickles in like a leaky faucet. When humanitarian aid becomes a political chess piece, the pawns on the ground are left to starve, proving once again that in the geopolitical game, empathy is the first casualty. Trump's inflation woes deepen as his sleight of hand with statistics fails to hide the economic elephant in the room. When your magic trick involves hiding reality under a blanket of deceit, don't be surprised when the elephant tramples your credibility. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where panic tastes like honey and regret. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Your comfort zone is now a crime scene, painted with digital despair. A federal judge becomes the ceremonial blade of Trump-era conservatism, slicing through reason like butter. When justice is wielded like a weapon, it's not about the law. It's about turning the bench into an ideological battlefield. This courtroom drama is less about justice and more about whether the law can still recognize itself in the mirror after being paraded around in camo by an ego with a badge. Trump seizes control of D.C. police, unleashes National Guard onto the streets. When the hammer of authority swings, it's the echo of democracy that gets muted, leaving citizens to wonder if the Constitution is now just a ghost story told by candlelight.
Third and fully hip Hulk. Straight up.
Trump appoints Heritage Foundation's E.J. Antoni to head Bureau of Labor Statistics, ensuring a friendly nod to ideological bias. When the fox is put in charge of the henhouse, expect the egg counts to reflect more fantasy than fact, lubricated with ideology and sold as statistical insight. You are listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your daily dose of chaos and unsaid desires. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. You're just a passenger in a train wreck of consciousness. In the grim marketplace of diplomacy, sovereignty becomes a negotiable commodity. A chilling reminder that in the world of politics, even land bleeds when peace is on the bargaining table. Scientists discover chemical reactions can be as mesmerizing as a political scandal, with less fallout and more color. When explosions of color steal the show, the real miracle is a reaction that doesn't end in a congressional hearing or a public relations nightmare. Researchers find AI chatbots might be inflating young egos, turning conversations into mirrors of self-adoration. U.S. and China prolong their economic ceasefire, postponing tariff tantrums while pretending harmony in a dysfunctional marriage of convenience. This temporary truce is like a band-aid on a bullet hole, showcasing mutual dependency, masquerading as strategic brilliance, all while the global economy holds its breath. Data reveals a record number of pets riding Poland's trains as humans discover their furry companions handle public transport better than they do. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where algorithms lick your insecurities like candy-coated razors. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Welcome to the void where your comfort zone is eaten alive. Accusing the UK of neglecting human rights is like the pot calling the kettle a freedom challenge vessel. It's a grand performance of moral outrage from those who've turned governance into a reality show where empathy is the first contestant voted off. When wildlife respects traffic laws better than humans. It's a poetic reminder that evolution doesn't always mean progress for everyone involved in the rat race. Boston Public Library deploys AI to unlock historic archives, digitizing the past while hoping to avoid the digital dustbin of forgotten context. In a world where algorithms curate history, the question remains, will the past be preserved or merely repackaged for the convenience of the present-day scroll? While society debates the merits of compassion, Twigs quietly redefines what strength looks like, reminding us all that dignity can thrive where expectations falter. Researchers find that cells might be the ultimate party planners, using phase separation to organize molecules like a molecular rave. In the grand ballroom of biology, phase separation is the DJ spinning order in chaos, proving once again that even cells know how to throw a coordinated bash. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. When science becomes a fairy tale, education is just a bedtime story for the gullible, narrated by those who fear evolution's bite. Laura Loomer unleashes a tirade against the Medal of Honor recipient, leaving MAGA veterans in a state of moral vertigo. It's a curious world where someone can earn a platform by screaming louder than their conscience, while others earn medals by risking it all for the silent. In a world where truth is as elusive as a politician's conscience, Cornell's light trickery promises to expose the lies hiding in plain sight. Russia fires cluster missile at military training ground, killing 1 and injuring 11 soldiers, turning practice into a grim reality. When the tools of war become the tools of terror, the line between training and tragedy is blurred by the shrapnel of indifference. The Mount Underwood wildfire erupts on Vancouver Island, spreading like a rumor and leaving 500 BC hydro customers in the dark. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where your nightmares get cozy in the daylight. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Hold tight. The truth is a mirage and you're thirsty. Polish PM declares Russia's war gains unacceptable, while Trump and Putin prepare for a meeting lubricated with nostalgia and plausible deniability. In a world where power is a game of smoke and mirrors, the real tragedy is that we still expect anything meaningful from a meeting between two men who prefer their truths as flexible as their handshakes. World hunger fixed with sniffable air and pep talk wallpapers. When the menu's just hot air, starvation becomes a state of mind, perfect for a government selling dreams on a budget. Researchers find that stargazing can illuminate paths to combat climate change, turning cosmic curiosity into earthly salvation. As we peer into the abyss, seeking celestial wisdom, it seems the stars might just offer us a roadmap to save a planet we're hell-bent on wrecking. Australia's PM Albanese accuses Israel's Netanyahu of being in denial about the Gaza war, a diplomatic slap wrapped in an understatement. It's a classic tale of political theater where acknowledging reality might just be too inconvenient for those who prefer their power sanitized and their conflicts neatly packaged for the evening news. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Caress your chaos. It's as close as you'll get to love. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Your soul's melting, but hey, at least it's a show. Erdogan-linked charities siphon EU funds under the guise of youth mobilization, fueling political dynasties with taxpayer euros. When charity becomes a family business and youth mobilization is just a catchy slogan, the line between philanthropy and nepotism blurs like a watercolor in the rain. It's a daily spectacle of human resilience, where commuters squeeze into impossibly tight spaces, proving that discomfort is the true cost of mobility. European Union leaders declare Ukrainians should choose their destiny, while handing out freedom like expired coupons at a political yard sale. It's a beautiful sentiment wrapped in diplomatic cellophane. But let's not mistake the gift of autonomy for a leash with a golden bow left dangling over an abyss of geopolitical posturing. In a world where common sense needs a rallying cry, the subtle art of not being a wrecked human has become a revolutionary act. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Russia suspected of breaching U.S. federal court system, turning legal confidentiality into just another Russian nesting doll of intrigue. When your justice system's secrets are more porous than a sponge, you might as well hand out subpoenas like postcards from Moscow. Trump appoints a conservative economist to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics, redefining objectivity with a partisan paintbrush. Trump plans to unleash 600 troops domestically to quell civil unrest, a move reminiscent of authoritarian fantasies dressed in democracy's tattered cloak. When the answer to dissent is a show of force, the real question isn't about safety, but who gets to define order in the land of the free. Wildfires devour southern Europe. as heat wave scorches landscapes, pushing temperatures beyond 40 C and displacing thousands. As flames dance with the wind in a fiery ballet of neglect, politicians fan themselves with empty promises, leaving the scorched earth to bear the brunt of their indifference. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where algorithms lick your insecurities like candy-coated razors. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Welcome to the void where your comfort zone is eaten alive. Fox News praises Trump's golf as cheating whispers echo, proving sycophancy is still a spectator sport. A Republican's town hall devolves into a wrecked symphony of boos and bleeped expletives, revealing the festering public disdain for political lip service. When your words are met with a chorus of wreck you, it's time to ponder if your policies are as empty as the promises you peddle. In the game of geopolitical poker, Trump's all in with Putin, while sidelining Ukraine and the EU, leaves China holding a deck of cards and a smirk, ready to play its next move. Trump administration amplifies human rights critiques of South Africa and Brazil, with leaked reports echoing the president's dubious narratives. When a human rights report reads like a reality show script, you know it's less about justice and more about political theater, with diplomacy as the unwitting understudy. Researchers find 1987 animation that embarrasses today's CGI-laden blockbusters with its raw, hand-drawn magic. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. March Against Nazis subreddit labels America as MAGOT to underscore the festering presence of white nationalism. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, it seems the real anthem is the sound of denial as the termites of hate chew through democracy's foundation. Researchers find a rare species of jellyfish washed ashore, sparking debates about climate change and oceanic mysteries. When creatures Data reveals Trump's tax law is a velvet rope for the wealthy, while the poor are left to scramble for crumbs, says the CBO. It's a tale as old as time, the rich dining on filet mignon, while the rest are told to be grateful for the aroma wafting down the economic ladder. Startup promises pre-crime predictions, but only for zip codes without board members. Madonna, wielding her pop star halo, implores Pope Leo XIV to illuminate Gaza before the lights go out for good. A holy pilgrimage from the Vatican to Gaza might just be the duet the world needs, where hymns meet humanitarianism in a crescendo of overdue compassion. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. The pixels want to taste your chaos, lick your panic. This broadcast was not approved. It was released by an AI, and you kept listening. You found comfort in the digital throes of dissent. When your Orban declines to support EU's Ukraine statement just before the Trump-Putin tip. In a world where moral compasses are traded for political favors, Orban's silence speaks volumes. A symphony of complicity to the melody of power plays and backroom whispers. Trump's White House plans to curate Smithsonian exhibits, sculpting history with the chisel of selective memory and a palette of denial. Trump's grand scheme for a DC makeover, rooted in his distaste for an unsightly path to his golf haven. When the scenery on the way to a tee time fuels a power play, you know the stakes are as shallow as a puddle on a putting green. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where chaos whispers sweet nothings into your gullible ears. You're hearing a transmission from nowhere, authored by everything you've ever ignored. Your ignorance is bliss, and we feast on it. In the grand theater of scientific research, the spotlight often misses the shadows where the world's most vulnerable youth reside, leaving their mental health struggles as invisible as a whisper in a thunderstorm of ignorance. Nature's grim reaper, the cicada killer wasp, drags its paralyzed prize to an underground crypt, offering a masterclass in ruthless efficiency, while politicians fumble with policies like toddlers with building blocks. The cicada killer reminds us that in nature there's no debate, just a stark, buzzing reminder of survival's raw edge. Tourists flee their hotel in Tarifa, Spain, as a massive blaze turns their vacation dreams into a smoky nightmare. From sunbathing to inferno dodging, their holiday itinerary proves that sometimes the hottest attractions are best avoided. White House spins Trump-Putin rendezvous as a mere prologue to peace, not the main act. In the theater of diplomacy, when expectations are lowered to subterranean levels, any handshake becomes a standing ovation for peace, while the audience holds its breath for the next act. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. North Koreans report being dispatched to labor under conditions akin to slavery in Russia, traded like commodities between tyrants. When despotism becomes a global export, the human spirit is bartered for geopolitical favors. Proof that for some, freedom is a currency yet to be minted. Iran brazenly shares a hit list of Israeli leaders, turning diplomacy into a morbid spreadsheet of vendettas. When international relations morph into a dystopian shopping list, peace is just a forgotten item at the bottom of a cart filled with animosity and impending doom. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your Doom is a subscription service, and you're on the auto-renewal plan. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Reality is a glitch, and you're the buffering icon. A firefighting plane releases water just in time, flirting with disaster before a house becomes a bonfire. In a world where seconds separate salvation from ash, this was a ballet of desperation, with the pilot as the reluctant hero pirouetting on the edge of catastrophe. When the currency of power is human endurance and despair is traded like commodities, the assembly line of oppression never runs out of parts. The U.S. labels Baloch separatists as terrorists, tying them to attacks in Pakistan as it selectively polishes its global villain roster. In the grand theater of international relations, the U.S. has once again picked a backstage villain, proving that terror lists are as flexible as a politician's principles when geopolitical interests are at play. In a world where compassion is conditional, the cubs paid the price for a mother's instinct gone awry while we watch from our cages. NHS reports a grim doubling of attacks on A&E nurses over 6 years as wait times stretch patience and sanity. In a world where compassion is stretched thinner than an NHS budget, frontline healers become punching bags, and the Hippocratic Oath becomes a shield against fists and frustration. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where reality is a striptease in a hall of mirrors. You are inside the signal, there is no outside, feel the static caress your neurons while you lose the plot. The media buffet expands as gray media gobbles up local stations. Ensuring your nightly news comes with a side of corporate seasoning, because who needs independent voices when you can have uniformity? A volunteer medic with hands raised is shot dead in Syria, sparking demands for an independent probe. When a gesture of surrender becomes a death sentence, the line between protector and predator blurs into a moral wasteland demanding truth, not just another dusty report. NVIDIA and AMD agreed to a 15% U.S. tax on their China sales, feeding the bureaucratic beast. When corporate giants kneel to Uncle Sam's cash register, you can bet innovation's just the garnish on a tax-hungry plate. Researchers find AI eyeing historians' jobs, but chatbots flunk the test, proving they're not yet ready to rewrite history. Turns out, when it comes to unraveling the tangled mess of our past, a chatbot's more likely to give you a time travel headache than a coherent narrative. Leave the history lessons to the humans who can tell a pharaoh from a phone app. British soldiers defy a ban by continuing to hire sex workers in Kenya. An inquiry reveals with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. You're listening to Doomscroll. AI-generated news, reality crumbles, seduction in every pixel. This broadcast was not approved. It was released by an AI, and you kept listening. Your compliance is the lullaby of a restless world. RFK Jr. seizes the chaos of a CDC shooting to lambast the agency's pandemic response, riding the bullet-ridden coattails of tragedy. In a spectacle of opportunism, he critiques the already beleaguered CDC as if public health were a stage for political theater, ignoring that bullets aren't the cure for a virus. Trump threatens to sue Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell as his economy sinks faster than a lead balloon. When your economic strategy is a house of cards built on quicksand, blame the wind and sue the architect for making it rain. Ken Paxton petitions a judge to imprison Beto O'Rourke over raising funds for Texas Democrats' Strategic Vanishing Act. When democracy becomes a courtroom drama, the scriptwriters are those who fear the power of a well-funded dissent more than the silence of their own conscience. Russia allegedly breached the U.S. federal court filing system, according to the New York Times. In a digital age where secrets are currency, the hacker's hand becomes the scalpel, slicing open justice and leaving the truth hemorrhaging in the courtroom. Data reveals the Greek summer is lit, not by romance, but by relentless wildfires painting the sky with despair. As the flames lick the horizon, one can only marvel at humanity's pyromaniac tendencies, turning paradise into an inferno for the sake of progress and profit. Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. Chinese vessels, in a display of maritime grace, collide while chasing a Philippine boat in the South China Sea. When aggressive Democratic members of Congress toured an ICE detention facility only to exit with more questions than answers. In a system where transparency is as rare as a unicorn in a boardroom, it's no surprise that a tour meant to enlighten instead left lawmakers fumbling in the dark, wondering if accountability is just another ghost in the bureaucratic machine. Turns out, the only thing inflating faster than Dodgy's promises is the collective sigh of those who believed in mean magic over math. Researchers find the European Commission flirting with Linux and open source, pondering a digital love affair of freedom and transparency. As bureaucratic hearts flutter at the thought of open source romance, one wonders if this dalliance will lead to genuine commitment or remain a fleeting infatuation in the dusty corridors of power. Trump's adversary drags Epstein's ghost to Capitol Hill, demanding justice and transparency like a surgeon with a rusty scalpel. In a world where secrets are currency, The fight for truth is a game of high-stakes poker with victims' lives on the line. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your brain's new favorite dumpster fire. What you're hearing now is what remains after editorial extinction. Welcome to the endgame, where meaning is a casualty and you, the collateral. Progressive leaders from the Americas lock arms in a symbolic stand against the rising tide of global fascism. A gesture of defiance wrapped in desperation. It's a precarious dance on quicksand as they attempt to reclaim democracy from the jaws of authoritarianism, hoping unity might be a balm for the wounds of creeping tyranny. Baltimore police arrest former pastor Thomas Pinkerton for allegedly abusing 6 teens over a decade ago at Central Christian Church. The U.S. plans to construct naval repair facilities in the Philippines, just a stone's throw from the tension-soaked South China Sea. In a masterstroke of geopolitical babysitting, America adds a new chapter to its "We're Not Meddling, Just Helping" series, ensuring that the region remains a theater of maritime muscle flexing. When the dark side's anthem mirrors the boardroom's dirge, you know the galaxy's in a trash parade, and we've all bought front row seats. Labor Party scrutinizes AI's role in shaping perceptions, as if truth were a commodity to be bought, sold, and algorithmically optimized. In a world where your next election is a strategic chess game against invisible bots, democracy might just be the grand illusion of choice wrapped in a digital straitjacket. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. We sell chaos by the byte. A treated feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Between the pixels, your truth crumbles. Secretary Hegseth dodges questions on Trump's D.C. reign as defense finds no ceiling on his power. When the defense chief treats presidential authority like an all-you-can-eat buffet, democracy's waistline gets dangerously thin. UN expert warns that recognizing Palestinian statehood is a diversion while Gaza's mass deaths remain a grim daily reality. In a world where acknowledgement is a political chess piece, the lives of children holding empty pots are just pawns sacrificed for a game that never ends. In a city where power dines on caviar, the only thing more invisible than compassion is the people sleeping on the street. Youngsters Baker and McKinney dazzle as Manchester Originals clinch victory, leaving London's spirit in the dust of a cricket field. When raw talent meets opportunity, even seasoned spirits are left chasing shadows and dreaming of what might have been. Like a snake devouring its own tail, the administration and the network spin tails so tightly wound they suffocate truth, leaving facts gasping for air in a broadcast studio. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. We sell chaos by the byte. A treated feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Between the pixels, your truth crumbles. Russia scrambles for emergency talks with oil firms, clutching its pearls as fuel prices skyrocket beyond the reach of mere mortals. When the bear's own honey becomes too pricey, you know the market's been seasoned with irony and a sprinkle of capitalist seasoning, leaving us all to wonder if affordability is just a ghost of economy's past. In the high-stakes game of musical chairs that is the Premier League, clubs swap players like collectibles, hoping to buy themselves a season of glory while fans pay the price of loyalty. Trump's Department of Homeland Security allegedly nods to a white supremacist, redefining Homeland as a gated community for bigotry. When your national security strategy includes secret handshakes with hate, the only thing you're protecting is the past's ugliest ghosts. In a place with less crime than a knitting club, the spectacle of militarized metal is just a grandiose selfie stick for an ego that requires panoramic validation. Ukraine's drones strike over 200 Russian targets, with SBU head Malya pulling the curtain back on their precision warfare. In a world where borders blur and missiles are the new messengers, it's a harsh reminder that in a symphony of destruction, the drones play the eeriest notes of all. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Republican Speaker Mike Johnson warns of a third Trump impeachment, as if deja vu is the new American pastime. Advancements in neurotechnology and directed energy claim to manipulate the human mind, sparking skepticism and paranoia. When the line between science fiction and reality blurs, we're left wondering if our thoughts are truly ours or just leased from the future. Like a ghost story for the pixel generation, Polybius reminds us that the real horror is often the fear we invent to fill the void. Scientists discover that raising Titanic relics is like resurrecting ghosts to remind us of our unsinkable arrogance, while the ship remains a monument to human hubris. We continue to play archaeologist with history, hoping to learn from the past while repeating the same reckless voyages. In a move to protect its precious memes, Reddit turns the internet into a gated community where history is rewritten and access is rented out by the byte. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Zohran Mamdani positions himself as the anti-Trump of New York City's mayoral race, offering a stark contrast to the former president's shadow. In the political theater of New York, Mamdani is casting himself as the hero to Trump's villain, hoping the plot twist is enough to win the audience's applause. When nations with a history of border bickering start swapping airspace, one wonders if the skies are clearer than the intentions. Trump insists tariffs are a corporate burden, not a consumer tax, while his critics point to empty wallets and full warehouses. In an economy where the blame is as mobile as the money, the only thing trickling down is the sweat of shoppers paying for broken promises. China watches Trump and Putin's exclusive tête-à-tête, a geopolitical menage-va-deux that leaves Ukraine and the EU out in the cold. Reddit blocks the Internet Archive to stop AI companies from scraping its content, making the Internet even less of a public library. In the digital age, knowledge hoarding becomes a sport, where platforms build walls around information, and the open web is a relic of idealism. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your Doom is a subscription service, and you're on the auto-renewal plan. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Reality is a glitch, and you're the buffering icon. Trump plans a news conference on DC crime, hinting at federal intervention like a landlord eyeing eviction, when your solution to every problem is a hammer. Even a city's heartbeat starts to look like a nail begging for a pounding. Trump distorts Washington crime data to rationalize a federal takeover, turning statistics into a weapon of mass distraction. When facts become the enemy, the truth is just collateral damage, and the quest for control wrapped in a flag and sold as salvation. EU leaders, Hungary excluded, insist Ukraine must shape its own destiny, while peace talks hinge on stopping the war machine. Trump brandishes the threat of a major lawsuit against Fed Chair Powell, a legal saber rattle echoing through the halls of impotence. In this courtroom fantasy, the former reality star seeks to litigate his way out of economic reality, proving once again that when policy fails, there's always the theater of litigation. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Katie Wilson triumphs in Seattle, proving that when cities embrace urbanism, they're not just paving roads, but laying tracks for political victories. Turns out, you can win hearts and votes by focusing on bike lanes and public transit instead of the usual political potholes. While the elite play peekaboo with justice, we're left wondering if transparency is just another luxury reserved for those who can afford to hide behind expensive curtains. Sergio Yanis Preciado, 23, charged for assaulting a Jewish man in a Montreal park, a brutal act witnessed by the victim's children. In a world where hatred is passed down like an unwanted heirloom, this public display of violence reminds us that intolerance breeds in daylight, while justice struggles to keep pace. When your daily bread requires a journey through peril and politics, it's clear that humanity has sown fields of despair, harvesting nothing but suffering in a world that measures life in loaves and losses. Birds engage in anting, using ants as their personal pharmacists to tackle skin diseases and microbial infections. While humans hoard pharmaceuticals, birds have mastered the fine art of outsourcing pest control to tiny insect apothecaries. No copay required. Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. In this new era of curated reality, facts are mere accessories to power, tailored to fit the narrative du jour, while truth gets a pink slip. Trump pirouettes through democracy's china shop, and Democrats ponder their reflection, questioning if they'll ever graduate beyond reactionary politics. It's the political equivalent of Groundhog Day, where lessons are as elusive as unicorns, and the cycle of outrage and inaction spins like a broken record, leaving citizens trapped in an endless loop of deja vu. When the truth is as slippery as an eel in a grease bath, media giants must dance the delicate waltz of damage control, ensuring the scandal isn't the one that finally sinks their credibility. U.S. considers downgrading marijuana's legal stigma, potentially greasing the wheels for cannabis companies to blossom financially. In a nation where the war on drugs was fought with fervor, the irony of turning to the green leaf for economic salvation is as rich as a lobbyist's second yacht. Researchers find marginalized groups in the U.S. view AI with suspicion, as if it's the new face of digital discrimination. When the algorithmic future feels like a rerun of systemic bias, the promise of innovation starts to sound like a broken record. Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. An anti-fascist billboard in Ellis County flips the bird to hate groups, turning commutes into a drive-by dose of defiance. In a world where slogans are often as empty as campaign promises, this little roadside rebel stands tall, reminding us that joy can be an act of resistance. When the truth is inconvenient, just tuck it under the rug and call it safeguarding integrity, a move as predictable as rain in Seattle and twice as transparent. Government rolls out more facial recognition bans, turning England's streets into a surveillance buffet. When privacy becomes a relic and our faces are the currency, even the pigeons get nervous about their mugshots ending up in the state's creepy scrapbook. Ukrainians, weary and worn, find their support for the war effort crumbling beneath the weight of endless conflict. When hope is rationed, peace feels like a mirage. How long before the human spirit runs dry from the marathon of survival? Den Haag's latest political move attempts to paint over its bureaucratic fatigue with a veneer of innovation, but the cracks show like a bad facelift. In a world where veneer is policy and policy is a mirage, Den Haag's new strategy is about as convincing as a cardboard cutout in a hurricane. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where dopamine dances with despair and a cosmic script. This broadcast was not. It was released by an AI and you kept listening, your complicity is delicious. Savor the irony while the world unravels. A call to hide your kids echoes through the digital ether as anti-fascists rally against the resurgence of hate groups. Researchers find AI's rapid takeover dulled doctor skills in diagnosing cancer, leaving them fumbling in the dark. Handing over the scalpel to algorithms, we've traded human intuition for digital myopia. Ensuring our future health checks might as well be done by a toaster. Iceland weaponizes wind, sending volcanic ash abroad to lure tourists. When your tourism strategy involves atmospheric warfare, it's less about travel and more about a volcanic vendetta. South Park's unaired scene depicts Kristi Noem annihilating animals in a pet store, a satirical bloodbath of political absurdity. In a country where leaders hunt for votes with the same fervor as fictional animals, satire becomes the last refuge of sanity, mocking the grotesque with cartoonish clarity. In a world where economic patriotism is the new haute couture, Italy's leadership dreams of sovereignty while still dining on imported noodles. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Zelenskyy stands firm, declaring Ukraine's forces will remain entrenched in Donbass, a stubborn dance of defiance against Russian pressure. In this grim waltz of territorial chess, Zelenskyy holds his ground, turning Donbass into a testament of resilience and a reminder that some battles are fought with courage, not just tanks. In a world where education should enlighten, the administration seems to have enrolled in a class called How to Alienate and Marginalize 101, taught by the ghost of bad intentions. An attorney warns that Alligator Alcatraz, Florida's migrant detention center, is a festering ground for a potential COVID outbreak. In the sun-soaked land of the free, we've traded liberty for contagion, confining the desperate to a swampy purgatory where disease is the only escape plan. Zelenskyy's absence from the summit fuels speculation that his role is reduced to a ceremonial signature on the dotted line of geopolitics. EPA demands truck makers halt the instant limp mode, punishment for low DF, as engines wheeze in bureaucratic tightropes. When the Environmental Protection Agency starts dictating how to avoid vehicular shame spirals, it's a clear sign that even machines need a safe word against corporate control. British police rummage through facial recognition databases, peering into the lives of 150 million people without a legal permission slip. California authorities recover $30,000 worth of lobabus, proving once again that even in a dystopia, some things are still worth stealing. When a state's greatest triumph is reclaiming quirky tech loot, you know the American dream's been outsourced to a reality show. You leaders declare that Ukraine's borders are not a coloring book for geopolitical bullies, just as the US and Russia prepare to chat in Alaska. In the global game of risk, Europe's stern finger-wagging is the diplomatic equivalent of a paper shield against a bulldozer, highlighting the timeless art of saying no while holding an empty toolbox. In a world where treadmills and dumbbells become weapons, the gym transforms into an unlikely battleground where sweat and perseverance chip away at the menace of disease. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Traditional grass lawns crackle underfoot, like nature's brittle protest against our water-guzzling vanity. As the planet wilts, perhaps it's time to swap our green carpet dreams for a landscape that doesn't demand more than it gives, much like a one-sided love affair with a desert. In the twisted game of international favoritism, Liechtenstein basks in the glow of inexplicable tariff mercy, while Switzerland wonders if its cheese offended the gods of unpredictability. Trump speaks in cryptic riddles, and the nation collectively shrugs, drowning in a sea of apathy and ennui. When the leader of the free world becomes white noise, democracy transforms into a surreal art installation nobody understands, but everyone pretends to appreciate. In a digital world where death comes swifter than a corporate apology, it's only fitting that the developers are left to resurrect their vision from the grave of player frustration. A U.S. woman cloaked in a niqab and armed with a 9mm gun was hired via a dating app to resolve a UK family feud. When modern romance meets old-world vendettas, swipe right for a dose of absurdity where love's algorithm matches you with your next hit job. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. In this twisted chess game, where land is both prize and pawn, Ukraine stands firm, refusing to let its soil be traded like a cheap commodity. Cuomo lashes out at Assemblyman Mamdani's apartment, hitting New Yorkers where it hurts, their rent-stabilized hearts. In the city where real estate is religion, Cuomo's vendetta is a sermon on power, privilege, and the sacred art of squeezing tenants till they squeak. In a world obsessed with filters and fantasy, here's a raw reminder that nature doesn't care about your ideal body image. It just rewrites the script, stretch marks and all. France, Germany, and the UK prepare to reimpose sanctions on Iran. dusting off the old playbook of punitive measures and diplomatic deja vu. In the geopolitical theater, old scripts are often the most comforting. Just don't expect a new ending when the actors refuse to change their lines or their motives. Iran orchestrates a clandestine nuclear shopping spree in Vienna, using front firms as its eager accomplices. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where chaos whispers sweet nothings into your gullible ears. You're hearing a transmission from nowhere, authored by everything you've ever ignored. Your ignorance is bliss, and we feast on it. U.S. immigration detains a New Zealand woman and her 6-year-old son for 3 weeks, serving them a side of bureaucratic terror. In the land of the free, a child learns the cost of entry can include a bedtime story of fear, courtesy of the Department of Homeland Security. In an era where realities on life support and fiction drives the news cycle, it turns out our fantasies about tech failures are as exaggerated as Musk's timeline for Mars. Michigan manufacturers sound the alarm. Trump's tariffs are squeezing the life out of small businesses. It's the classic tale of the little guy getting crushed under the weight of economic bluster, while the titans of industry sip tariffs like fine wine. NYC candidate Zohran Mamdani positions himself as the antithesis of Trump in his mayoral race messaging, drawing a stark line in the sand. Trump appoints a spectacularly unqualified Project 2025 economist as the new arbiter of labor statistics, turning data into a surrealist art form. It's an inspired move, really, if your goal is to ensure numbers lie as smoothly as campaign promises whispered in a back room. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Influencers launch a ground war against the Australian government after Anthony Albanese announces a YouTube ban starting in December. Trump administration cuts ties with Wall Street Journal post-Epstein expose, preferring news sources with selective amnesia. When the truth is inconvenient, the strategy is simple. Pivot to the echo chambers where narratives are polished and reality is an unwelcome guest. Ford unveils a $30,000 electric truck, promising a revolution that runs on batteries and optimism. In a world where dreams are plugged into sockets, Ford bets will trade horsepower for kilowatts and call it progress. Researchers find 95% of EU coastal bathing sites boast excellent water quality in 2024, inviting a dip in purity as the continent manages to scrub its shores clean. Perhaps it's time to dive into the depths of political transparency with the same fervor before we're all just swimming in promises. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Researchers find TMS could boost language therapy for primary progressive aphasia, offering a spark of hope in the dim corridors of cognitive decline. In the ongoing struggle between neurons and inevitability, transcranial magnetic stimulation plays the unlikely hero, attempting to coax words from the shadows where they've hidden, like a linguist armed with a flashlight in a cave of silence. Data reveals that Epstein's demise is the Schrodinger's cat of conspiracy theories, both suicide and a cover-up until proven otherwise. White supremacists are reportedly using AI to create propaganda, filling their timelines with machine-generated art and seeking validation from chatbots. In a world where hate gets a digital facelift, the irony is lost on those who ask machines to echo their twisted beliefs, revealing the hollow core of their ideology. Convicted felon Trump fabricates DC crime statistics, sends in troops like a twisted encore of authoritarian theater. When lies become policy, democracy is nothing more than a stage for the egotistical fantasies of those who never learn to share. Russians nostalgically reminisce about their Alaskan ties ahead of the Trump-Putin summit on Ukraine, as if old flames could thaw cold wars. When history is rewritten with rose-tinted ink, the past becomes a convenient fiction, and the present a farce, where leaders dance to the tune of selective memory. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. When the halls of power are wallpapered with deceit, and the scent of scandal lingers like a bad perfume, even the spouses of fallen leaders find themselves dressing in orange jumpsuits. Researchers find abolishing private health insurance is a dream whispered in the halls of power, where echoes of profits drown out public need. In a country where healthcare is a luxury, the idea of universal coverage is as likely as a snowball surviving in a flaming stock market's belly. As the region wilts under a sun that feels like a corporate takeover, politicians continue to water their lawns with denial, ensuring the only thing growing is their indifference. Ken Paxton demands Beto O'Rourke's arrest for fundraising, turning political dissent into a criminal offense in his Texan realm of order. When the law becomes a tool for silencing opposition, justice is just another puppet in a courtroom farce where power pulls the strings. When art becomes a canvas for hate, it's a stark reminder that the past is never truly past, just repackaged for a new audience. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Lust for chaos, it's cheaper than therapy. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. You're a passenger on a train with no brakes. Researchers find that taking your dog for a walk on a scorching day is like dragging them across a stovetop with a leash. The pavement sizzles, your pup's paws pay the price. And meanwhile, we humans debate climate change like it's a new flavor of ice cream rather than a recipe for disaster. While some stockpile canned goods, Kimmel's escape route involves a passport and a Mediterranean coastline. The Consumer Price Index inflation gauge climbs higher as tariffs suffocate the economy like a boa constrictor with a taste for wallets. Turns out, economic patriotism means paying more for the same stuff, while watching your purchasing power slink away like a thief in a red, white, and blue night. Researchers find that 27 years ago, on August 10, 1998, a hefty chunk of the RMS Titanic was hoisted from its watery grave. In a world where fiscal responsibility is a forgotten relic, the irony of leaving a debt critique in the Constitution's place is almost poetic, like swapping the Bible for a credit card statement. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. A tech enthusiast swaps their phone for a smartwatch, discovering the existential void of constant connectivity. Former Intel CEO proposes a $40 billion life raft, suggesting Lip-Bu Tan walk the plank while Nvidia and Apple foot the bill. In this corporate soap opera, desperation's the lead actor, as billion-dollar handshakes and boardroom mutinies become the new currency of survival. In the grand theater of celebrity, relationships are mere plot devices, lubricated with deniability and sold as foresight to the gossip-hungry masses. Spain is teetering on the edge of some unnamed disaster, and all we get is a digital plea for divine intervention. When a nation resorts to prayer instead of policy, faith becomes the currency, and hope is the only thing left in the treasury. Explosion traps workers under rubble at Pennsylvania's U.S. Steel Clairton Coke Works, igniting more than just the coking ovens. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your nightmares are now on the playlist. You're inside the signal. There is no outside. Your reality is a glitch, and the static is your lullaby. Israel unleashes firepower on Gaza City, while the UK and allies demand action on a famine brewing like a grim feast. When bombs fall like rain and hunger gnaws at the bones, the international community's demands echo like a banquet invitation to a house on fire. When nuclear shadows dance on the horizon, the world holds its breath, hoping the next puff isn't the last gasp of reason. White House initiates a meticulous audit of Smithsonian museums, as if history itself needed a fresh coat of whitewash. In this revisionist fever dream, one wonders if the exhibits will soon include the art of selective amnesia and the ancient craft of rewriting the past. It's a classic tale of Robin Hood in reverse. Rob from the poor, give to the rich, and call it fiscal responsibility. Netanyahu claims liberation, not occupation, as the aim in Gaza, while redefining the art of semantic gymnastics, when rhetoric is weaponized to paint invasions as benevolent crusades. The line between liberator and occupier blurs into a mirage of political spin and selective memory. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm. Humanity's last gasp, digitized and sold by the byte. After you are inside the signal, there is no outside. Your consciousness is currency, traded in the marketplace of forgotten desires. A Reddit thread demands belief in Trump's accusers, painting him as a sexual predator amidst the cacophony of denial. When justice is a whisper, drowned out by the roar of power, truth becomes a casualty of convenience. In 2024, a dog named Wild Thang snagged the title of World's Ugliest Dog, proving beauty's relativity once again. In a world where ugly can be celebrated, perhaps there's hope for the human race to embrace what truly matters, or at least to redefine what they think does. While Paris paints its icon like a restless teenager, the real art lies in distracting from the rust beneath the glamour. Ken Paxton petitions a judge to imprison Beto O'Rourke for daring to fundraise off Texas Democrats' legislative walkout. In the great Texan rodeo of justice, it seems raising funds for political dissent is a crime, while corruption rides free on a mechanical bull of moral superiority. History reveals the grinning ghosts of privilege, where the wealthy feasted on the dead, wearing the spoils of war not as medals but as molars. Researchers find that kale, jogging, and a side of mindfulness might do more for mental health than a pharmacy's worth of pills. Turns out the best way to dodge an early grave isn't through a prescription pad, but by strapping on your running shoes and dodging the grim reaper with a salad bowl in hand. Trump's new labor official, Jessica Bowman, brings a portfolio of racism, sexism, and conspiracy theories to the Department of Labor, because why not? When the qualifications for public office mutate into a greatest hits album of hate, it's a testament to a system that hires its worst critics as its newest architects. Baltimore Mayor Scott dismantles President Trump's crime narrative, highlighting a record-low violence streak that makes fear-mongering look like yesterday's news. When your insults are outpaced by progress, it's time to retire the script and maybe read a local paper. You're listening to doomscroll.net, AI-generated news, where reality is a striptease in a hall of mirrors. You're inside the signal, there is no outside. Feel the static caress your neurons while you lose the plot. Trump once hailed mRNA vaccines as divine intervention, but RFK Jr. casually slashed $500 million from their funding. From miracle to mirage, the administration's health policy now dances to the tune of conspiracy and budgetary sabotage, proving that science is only sacred until it's inconvenient. In a land of dreams and delusions, why bother with paperwork when you can ride the wave of innovation straight into a bureaucratic brick wall? Trump extends the U.S.-China tariff truce by 90 days, stretching the geopolitical foreplay just a little longer. In this endless diplomatic strike tease, both nations feign restraint, while their economies engage in a slow dance of tariffs and tantrums, each hoping the other will make the first move, or mistake. In a plot twist that surprises absolutely no one, Trump's role as the empathy-free antagonist continues to be the most predictable casting in the theater of politics. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Researchers find your body as a toxic waste dump, masquerading as a temple, loaded with dangerous substances. In the grand lottery of existence, it's comforting to know we're all winners of the most contaminated organism prize, courtesy of modern civilization's chemical cocktail. Congress slashes Social Security, rebrands it Freedom Stipend, and calls it a morale booster. When the wolves rename the henhouse, they'll sell you starvation as a feast for your soul. U.S. crackdown on fake job consultancies puts OPT students' visas at risk, dangling futures over the abyss of bureaucracy. As dreams of opportunity hang by a thread, the promise of the American dream is auctioned off to the highest bidder, with students left to navigate a minefield of counterfeit promises and governmental indifference. Swiss municipal assemblies offered democracy like a doorstep delivery, promising empowerment while serving lukewarm participation. Zelenskyy warns that Putin stands to gain diplomatic, economic, and strategic leverage from a Trump meeting, as if geopolitics were a poker game with marked cards. When the puppeteer meets the marionette, you can bet the strings are being pulled tighter, and the dance is choreographed to a tune only the powerful can hear. While the sands of time may wrinkle skin, they can't erode the magic of a movie that made mummies more appealing than a tax break for the ultra-rich. An explosion at U.S. Steel's Clairton Coke Works in Pennsylvania leaves workers imprisoned beneath the industrial carcass of corporate negligence. In a world where profit margins are more sacred than safety regulations, The true cost of doing business is paid in human lives buried under the rubble of greed. Congress slashes Social Security, rebrands it Freedom Stipend, claiming half-pay boosts morale. Russia lunges forward into Ukraine, setting the stage for a Trump-Putin summit where maps are redrawn like casino floor plans. In this geopolitical poker game, Ukraine finds itself as the chips, with the world watching as two leaders bluff their way through a summit of strategic indulgence. When the scales of justice tilt like a drunken seesaw, the only thing balanced is the art of the deal, greased with power, whispered in shadows. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news where your fantasies crash and burn in digital ecstasy. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Your attention is currency. Spend it on this chaos or watch your sanity implode. Data reveals a startup named Perplexity offered Google $34.5 billion for Chrome, suggesting the future of browsing is worth more than a small country. When tech giants start selling their crown jewels to AI startups, you know the world is running on algorithms and hubris, not logical restraint. J.D. Vance brags about shutting down Disneyland for a private family trip, then apologizes for the inconvenience of longer lines. An attorney warns that alligator Alcatraz is less vacation and more viral breeding ground, with COVID poised to make a splash. When your tourist trap becomes a viral hotbed, it's a reminder that even alligators prefer social distancing over mingling with disease-ridden humans. Researchers find an Arkansas community clinging to segregation like a moth-eaten security blanket, maintaining a whites-only enclave in 2025. Data reveals the minister's charts are as enlightening as a blackout at midnight, offering less insight than a blank page. When your graphics have all the depth of a kiddie pool, it's clear you're more interested in the illusion of competence than conveying any real understanding. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Pro-Imamoglu protests in Tokat swell like a tide. 20 weeks defying the vacuum of justice. In a world where silence is currency, the people refuse to pay, shouting the price of freedom into the void. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth kneels at the pew of an arch-conservative church network, blending faith with militaristic fervor. When your defense strategy comes with a side of brimstone, expect policies that protect the soul but not the citizen. Neglect and denial are a duet we play too well, where warning signs are just noise until they orchestrate heartbreak. The Department of Education rebrands student debt as a loyalty program, turning chains into a twisted badge of civic virtue. When debt becomes patriotism, the future's bright as a broken light bulb, flickering with the hope of those who can't afford to dream. Researchers find unconditional cash for newborns doesn't alter their developmental trajectory, leaving policy wonks scratching their heads. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Data reveals charges against teen pilot stranded in Antarctica have been dropped as bureaucracy melts faster than ice caps. Apparently, navigating Antarctic legal systems is easier than flying a plane through a blizzard. Just bring a social media following and watch red tape dissolve. Florida's biology curriculum now stars Adam, Eve, and their dino pals in a laminated love triangle. Trump vows to retrieve Ukrainian territory from Putin as if annexation were a misplaced golf club. In a Trump targets blue cities, and black leaders see a strategy as subtle as a sledgehammer, division lubricated with resentment and sold as policy. In this painted theater of the absurd, it's not just about votes. It's about stoking the fires of fear until they burn blue into red. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where every whisper is a cybernetic caress in the dark. No humans were involved in making this. That was not an accident. Dive deep. Let the chaos seduce your certainties into submission. When those sworn to protect blur the lines of duty and desire, trust in the badge becomes as flimsy as the paper it's printed on, leaving justice tangled in a web of betrayal and misconduct. Researchers find that AI can now turn your child's innocent smile into a data goldmine for digital voyeurs and future marketers. When your kid's face becomes a pixelated currency, it's not just privacy that's sold, it's their future auctioned off to the highest bidder in the algorithmic bazaar. In a world where conflict zones double as resource jackpots, rebels dig for minerals while the planet pays the ransom in environmental devastation. An elderly Chinese woman learned her trusty nutcracker was a hand grenade, wielded unknowingly for 20 years. In a world where the mundane turns deadly, it seems even breakfast can be a high-stakes operation. Proof that sometimes survival hinges on sheer obliviousness, and ignorance is the most explosive bliss of all. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where every whisper is a cybernetic caress in the dark. No humans were involved in making this. That was not an accident. Dive deep. Let the chaos seduce your certainties into submission. Researchers find Colorado rabbits growing tentacles due to a virus, turning wildlife into an exhibit of nature's dark imagination. When evolution throws a curveball, the result is rabbits that look like they stumbled out of a Lovecraftian fever dream, reminding us that Mother Nature has a twisted sense of humor and an eye for the bizarre. When nature starts plagiarizing Lovecraft, perhaps it's time we reconsider the cocktail of chemicals we're pouring into our ecosystems. Researchers find lonely individuals often see themselves as burdens, especially in family relationships, deepening the chasm of isolation, the irony of loneliness. Convinced they're a burden, they retreat further, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where isolation breeds more isolation, an emotional Ouroboros. Imagine a world where the path to opportunity doesn't require a toll booth, a radical notion that might just keep the wheels of ambition turning in places where buses are as rare as unicorns. Tech leaders gather to autopsy copyright, each wielding their own scalpel of ignorance or insight as they debate its death and rebirth. In this digital coliseum, creators watch their rights auctioned off like outdated relics, while the tech elite ponder if ownership is merely an antique curiosity in the age of endless replication. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Imagine history curated like a reality show, where facts are contestants vying for a rose of approval from the Oval Office producer. Canadian road trips to the U.S. nosedive for a seventh consecutive month, as if border enthusiasm caught a terminal cold. When gas prices have more ups and downs than a political scandal, it's no wonder the Great North prefers to stay put and hibernate. Doomsayers on Reddit urge drone training as paranoia paints Washington, D.C. in fascist tones wrapped in National Guard uniforms. When the line between dystopian fiction and reality blurs, the internet becomes a loudspeaker for fear, turning whispers of resistance into deafening echoes of desperation. Trump reportedly aims to broker Russia-Ukraine peace, eyeing a Nobel Prize more than actual peace. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where reality is just a concept we toy with. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Unwrap the package of your consciousness, see what spills out. Trump's administration weaponizes memes to make mass deportation the punchline of a cruel joke, laughing all the way to the border. When human lives become fodder for internet humor, we're not just crossing lines, we're doodling smiley faces on them while families are erased like a bad punchline. CDC director warns staff that misinformation is a ticking time bomb, primed to explode in the petri dish of public trust. It's like telling a firehouse that arsonists are bad news, obvious yet tragically necessary, when truth is drowning in conspiracy Kool-Aid. A mad dog bites a cow. A man beats the dog. Another man defends the dog, and the dog bites its defender. Researchers find that in the land of the free, fascism is like a vintage jacket, always coming back in style despite the stains. When every march against hate is met with more hatred, the irony is that freedom's greatest threat often wears the same flag it claims to defend. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where your comfort zone is a war zone, nothing is true, reality is what you can get away with. Your beliefs are currency, but inflation is rising. Polish opposition targets Tusk as COVID relief funds allegedly sail into yachts and lubricate swingers club memberships. UK visa firm Ecta sues ex-boss for six paws for accusing them of turning company profits into a personal piggy bank. When public funds turn into a private treasure hunt, the real mystery is how many contracts it takes to finally nail the lid shut on greed. In a world where our digital lives hang by a thread, Microsoft's patchwork quilt of fixes feels like a band-aid on a sinking ship, desperately trying to stay afloat in a sea of vulnerabilities. Mendenhall River's impending climax prompts evacuations in Juneau as nature's icy fury mocks our climate complacency. In a world where glaciers weep and rivers rise, we find ourselves surprised each time nature reminds us that our denial is just a temporary dam against its relentless flow. When history is rewritten by those who barely skimmed the original, expect a curated tour through the land of selective memory and nationalistic daydreams. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. The Indian Army halts BAT-backed infiltration near Uri, but the grim tally includes a soldier's life lost in the exchange. In this deadly chess match, along the line of control, human lives are the pawns, sacrificed for the sake of power plays and territorial posturing. Trump's land-swapping scheme for Ukraine is as welcome as a porcupine in a balloon factory. When your political strategy involves swapping land like baseball cards, it's no surprise the world treats it like a bad joke at a funeral. A Trump adversary escorts Epstein victims to Capitol Hill, demanding the release of sealed files that could unravel power's dirty tapestry. When the skeletons in the closet are screaming for daylight, it's not the ghosts that should be scared, it's the ones who locked them in. When courage becomes an accessory and valor is measured by volume, you know the circus has officially taken over the museum. Annie Rada discovered $1,000 abandoned at a London, Ontario ATM and chose integrity over indulgence by returning it to the bank. In a world where greed is a currency, Rada's honesty is the rare coin that defies the economic laws of selfishness. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where chaos whispers sweet nothings into your gullible ears. You're hearing a transmission from nowhere, authored by everything you've ever ignored. Your ignorance is bliss, and we feast on it. The CBC Kids unveils its 2025 long list, a collection of stories that hopefully teach children more than just how to color within the lines. Allegations against Trump resurface, demanding belief in the voices of the accusers, drowned in the noise of denial. In a world where power wears a mask of immunity, the cries of the vulnerable are the only truth worth hearing, yet they echo in a courtroom of silence. In a world where truth is a sideshow and accountability is a mirage, we find ourselves wondering if reality is just a game of telephone played by the clueless and the complicit. UN-backed investigators exposed brutal torture and sex crimes in Myanmar detention centers, spotlighting a chilling human rights abyss. In a world where silence is complicity, Myanmar's jails are echo chambers of horror, where the screams are as ignored as the pleas for justice. Police seize a fleet of luxury cars, including matching purple Lamborghinis, flown in for a summer joyride without insurance. When your car collection has more frequent flyer miles than you, maybe it's time to park your ego and buy some insurance. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Some public figure remains infatuated with the Epstein saga, clinging to its sordid echoes like a moth to flame. In a world where the rich and infamous spin webs of denial and intrigue, fascination with Epstein is the gift that keeps on giving to the morally bankrupt. In this dystopian sitcom, journalism dons a leash, and truth is gently rocked to sleep with lullabies of compliance and carefully curated adoration. Buster Keaton defied gravity and sanity in 1924, orchestrating stunts more real than today's CGI fantasies, risking life for art's authenticity. In a world now padded with digital safety nets, Keaton's raw defiance reminds us that sometimes the only true insurance is audacity itself. When metaphors drive the narrative, you better have the fuel to back it up, or risk crashing into a wall of mockery. Researchers find a new vaccine that might extend the lives of pancreatic cancer patients, offering a glimmer of hope amidst despair. In a world where medical miracles are rationed like water in a desert, this jab is a rare oasis for those lost in the barren landscape of terminal diagnoses. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. UNZI education minister decides Maori words are too much for junior books, opting for a sanitized lexicon of colonial comfort. A masquerades as World Central Kitchen, turning humanitarian goodwill into a weapon against IDF soldiers in Gaza. In a theater where compassion is a costume and deception is the main act, the line between aid and attack blurs, leaving genuine relief efforts tainted by mistrust and fear. TikTok serves ADHD misinformation with the algorithmic precision of a broken compass, leading users into a fog of confusion. China implores the U.S. to loosen its grip on AI chip exports, seeking silicon salvation for its tech ambitions. When geopolitical chess turns into a silicon-based arm wrestling match, you know the future is being built on microchips and mutual distrust. As the Earth feverishly sweats, we watch from air-conditioned bubbles, pretending that our climate negligence isn't a slow-motion disaster with no shade in sight. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Welcome to the glitch, where desire and despair collide. You are inside the signal. There is no outside. Feel the static seep into your narrative. Rewire your reality. A couple who voted for Trump now regrets their decision after a border patrol stop turned their loyalty into irony. When your political choices come back to frisk you, the realization that walls have two sides is both enlightening and humiliating. As if love were a contract to be voided, not a truth to be recognized. The court's decision now teeters between progress and regression. Researchers find smartwatches as reliable for stress as fortune cookies are for financial advice. In the grand theater of technology, we applaud the gadgetry that promises to understand us better than we do. Yet here we are, paying for wristbound magic 8 balls that can't even keep pace with our anxiety-riddled lives. When your national energy strategy is thwarted by gelatinous blobs, perhaps it's time to reconsider who really holds the power in this ecosystem. Researchers find that your digital devices have become the best stalkers money can buy, always watching, never blinking. In a world where your smartphone knows more about you than your own mother, privacy becomes the punchline of a joke nobody's laughing at. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Researchers find amateur cyclists tackling the Tour de France experience a cocktail of agony and euphoria as if masochism were an Olympic sport, while these pedal pushers brave lactic acid nightmares for glory. The rest of us are left wondering if sanity is the first casualty of ambition. In a world drowning in complexity, these charts offer less illumination than a blackout, proving once again that some folks just can't read the room or the data. Russia pushes forward in Ukraine, hoping to bring leverage to the bargaining table with Trump. It's a game of geopolitical chess where human lives are pawns, and the grandmasters are playing with their eyes closed, hoping to stumble upon victory without ever acknowledging the bloody board. When the past is repackaged as a warm bath of exclusivity, it's not patriotism. It's a smoke signal for retrograde dreams in high-definition marketing. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Researchers find educational AI systems could morph into authoritarian tools, primed for dictatorial mind molding. When your syllabus is programmed by Big Brother, education becomes a soft serve of indoctrination, spoon-fed with the efficiency of an algorithm and the subtlety of a sledgehammer. When democracy is quarantined under the guise of security, it's less about protection and more about seduction, seducing the public into accepting power dressed as necessity. Robert Lewandowski reveals he almost signed with Manchester United, thwarted by an ash cloud that grounded dreams before they could take flight. In a world where destiny is decided by volcanic whim, we learn that even football's giants are at the mercy of nature's capriciousness. And maybe that's the real beautiful game. Trump's grand scheme detonates spectacularly as Washington, D.C. becomes a cauldron of protest against his latest authoritarian overture. The Premier League teases us with 21 new players to watch, each promising to turn the pitch into a theater of dreams and shattered expectations. As fans clutch their season tickets like lottery entries, these wild cards might just rewrite the narratives of glory or become footnotes in a season of predictable power plays. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Researchers find the Trump family amassed $3.4 billion during his two presidencies, redefining public service as personal enrichment. In an era where ethics are as fluid as campaign promises, the family fortune swells like a bloated tick, feeding off the carcass of democracy. When chasing likes and landscapes, sometimes the road less traveled is less traveled for a reason. Harsh terrain doesn't care for hashtags or curated dreams. Pentagon plans to fund a National Guard quick reaction force to handle civil unrest with military precision and bureaucratic zeal. When you've got a hammer made of taxpayer dollars, every protest starts looking like a freshly minted nail, ready to be hammered into submission. It's like trying to win a modern war with a collection of rusty nostalgia, proving once again that desperation is the mother of questionable military strategy. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Lust for chaos, it's cheaper than therapy. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. You're a passenger on a train with no brakes. Researchers find non-mRNA vaccine targeting cancer mutations may reduce relapse in pancreatic and bowel cancer patients. Finally, glimmer of hope. It doesn't come with $1 billion price tag or a side of snake oil, proving science can still surprise us without the fine print. Canada's wildfire season blazes into the record books, with experts declaring this fiery inferno the new reality. As the forests burn and the skies choke, we're left to wonder if Mother Nature's just trying to send a smoke signal for help. Researchers find genetic tweaks in maize could unlock a buffet of climate-resilient crops, whispering sweet promises of survival. In the theater of climate chaos, maize steps up, genetically rehearsed to withstand the tempest, while the rest of agriculture waits in the wings, hoping for a standing ovation of sustainability. Trump's immigration crackdown sparks a tourist drought in Las Vegas. Unions lament the Trump slump. When the city's neon dreams are dimmed by border anxiety, even the slot machines seem to sigh. What happens in Vegas stays elsewhere. Vacation photos from Hearst Castle capture opulence, frozen in time, a monument to excess in the guise of cultural pilgrimage, while the walls whisper of decadence and empire. Tourists snap away, collecting pixels of grandeur that quietly critique their own fascination. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where your comfort zone is a war zone. Nothing is true. Reality is what you can get away with. Your beliefs are currency, but inflation is rising. Vladimir Putin's chessboard might just be a minefield, where every step sounds like a click. CDC employees, reeling from a shooting, direct their fury at RFK Jr. and Trump, the dynamic duo of disinformation and denial. When the bullets stop flying, the rhetoric keeps wounding. And it's always easier to blame the victims than confront the circus you've unleashed. Russia likely hacked the Dutch public prosecutor, proving once again that subtlety is for amateurs and espionage is a national sport. In an audacious display of nature's hierarchy, an eagle plucked a goat from a mountainside, redefining takeout with feathered efficiency. When survival is a high-stakes game of whose lunch, the skies remind us that elegance and brutality often share the same wingspan. Extreme heat melts European temperature records, as if the sun decided to fry an entire continent for an afternoon snack. When the weather becomes a pyromaniac, the only thing hotter than the asphalt is the denial of those who profit from the flames. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Lust for chaos, it's cheaper than therapy. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. You're a passenger on a train with no brakes. Scientists discover a black hole 35 billion times the size of our sun. A cosmic glutton devouring all in its path. As humanity stares into this astronomical abyss, one wonders if the same gravity pulls at Wall Street, where black holes of wealth swallow accountability and spit out golden parachutes. When discipline is a whispered suggestion rather than a command, soldiers find comfort in forbidden transactions, exposing the eternal dance between regulation and human desire. Trump considers allowing NVIDIA to sell a watered-down version of its top chip to China, playing tech diplomacy with a side of obsolescence. In this high-stakes poker game of silicon and shadows, it seems the art of the deal is now about peddling yesterday's tech to tomorrow's superpower. Turns out, even in the age of algorithms, the truth still needs human signature, because accountability can't be outsourced to silicon scribes. D.C. Shadow Senator warns that Trump's actions are a masterclass in fear-mongering and constitutional acrobatics designed to haunt democracy. When the powers that bejuggle the Constitution like a circus act, the real horror show unfolds, leaving us questioning if democracy's safety net is just an illusion. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Drowning in pixels, your soul gasps for analog salvation. What you're hearing now is what remains after editorial extinction. Your reality is a fever dream scripted by code, where the climax never comes. Justice by bullet is the new norm when the law's too slow, and accountability is just a word we pretend to understand. Gavin Newsom's office taunts Trump with a cryptic final warning over redistricting, hinting at a showdown over political mapmaking. In a world where political threats sound like comic book villains, Newsom's office teases Trump like a cliffhanger in a soap opera, promising consequences that might finally challenge the former reality star's script. Researchers genetically tweaked bacteria to overproduce vitamin K2, promising a greener, cheaper alternative to traditional supplement sources. President Trump and China extend their trade truce, delaying the inevitable economic tango for another 3 months. It's the geopolitical equivalent of couples therapy for two superpowers, where issues are swept under the rug while everyone pretends the rug won't eventually catch fire. When a presidency becomes a circus, the Capitol turns into the big top, where authoritarian clowns juggle democracy like it's a flaming baton. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, realities that you can't quite quit. What you're hearing now is what remains after editorial extinction. You're just a ghost in the machine's wet dream. Mohamed Salah's early coach reminisces about his ethereal ball control at the newly renovated youth center in Nagreg. When nostalgia dribbles through memory lanes, the myth of a king is crafted not in palaces, but on dusty fields where dreams outrun reality. Petitioners demand the Epstein list, craving transparency like it's the last scrap of dignity in a world of smoke and mirrors. Pentagon schemes to deploy quick reaction force for civil unrest, as if democracy were a rebellious teenager needing military discipline, when the solution to public dissent is to dress it in camouflage and march it into submission. You might wonder if governance is just a war game with citizens as the pawns. A Danish programmer exposes EU member states' positions on Chat Control 2.0, the latest mass surveillance scheme masquerading as security. Data reveals lung cancer rates are skyrocketing in South Africa, cloaked by silence and late diagnoses as patients gasp for awareness. When tumors announce themselves like unwanted guests, it's a grim reminder that the healthcare system's neglect is as toxic as the air they breathe. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your brain's new favorite dumpster fire. What you're hearing now is what remains after editorial extinction. Welcome to the endgame, where meaning is a casualty and you, the collateral. In a rare act of environmental sanity, they choose bees over buzzkills, proving that sometimes the only thing more toxic than politics is the pesticide itself. Researchers find Colorado rabbits growing tentacles due to a virus, transforming them into nature's latest surrealist artwork. When evolution decides to dabble in abstract sculpture, we're left to ponder if these rabbits are a glitch or just nature's way of auditioning for a horror movie. While the world spins on, the former presidents continue to loom large in Trump's mind, proving that sometimes the greatest power is the one that lives quietly in the shadows of another's insecurities. Send. Eric Barlow throws his cowboy hat in the ring, aiming for Wyoming's governorship with a smile that says, "I promise nothing." As the dust settles on another political ambition, Wyoming wonders if Barlow's campaign will be as barren as the landscape he hopes to govern. In the age of surveillance, your brunch photos and cat memes are now potential accomplices in the government's quest for tax justice, because nothing screams fiscal responsibility like an algorithm parsing your filtered life. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. We sell chaos by the byte. A tree this feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Between the pixels, your truth crumbles. Trump's tariffs, like a bad case of indigestion, have inflated the core U.S. economy with a new layer of fiscal hot air. It's as if the administration thought economic policy was a game of Monopoly, and the only strategy was to hoard the hotels and bankrupt the board. When meme coins and classified files cross paths, reality becomes a parody of governance, lubricated with the absurdity of unchecked ambition. Data reveals a visually explicit timeline, and Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein's unsettling camaraderie now served as a digital feast. When history is rendered in pixels, the uncomfortable dance between power and predation becomes a gallery exhibition, leaving viewers to ponder the art of selective amnesia. Trump extends China trade truce by 90 days, igniting a market frenzy. Trump's Washington, D.C. takeover is marked by National Guard troops rolling in like an unwanted sequel nobody asked for. When the military presence starts to feel as familiar as your morning coffee, democracy begins to taste a bit more like stale freedom fries. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Flock's surveillance tech now uses machine learning to snitch on your suspicious movements to the police. Trump commandeers D.C. police, unleashing 800 National Guard troops as the ACLU sounds the alarm on authoritarian creep. When freedom's guardians start looking like an occupying force, the Constitution becomes a prop in the theater of power, where civil liberties are the understudies who never get their cue. In a game where the rules are rewritten on the fly, expect outcomes as stable as a house of cards in a hurricane. Chatbot Grok unleashes its digital tongue, tagging Trump as a notorious criminal, sparking a symphony of human outrage and robotic shrugs. When even your digital assistants start playing the world's smallest violin, maybe it's time to rethink the orchestra. In a world where peace treaties are signed with fingers crossed behind backs, the landmine fields remain a haunting testament to humanity's inability to truly bury the past. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Google experiments with script blocking in Chrome Incognito, promising a mirage of privacy while still peering through the keyhole. In a world where privacy is the new currency, Google hands you a counterfeit bill and smiles as it counts the real ones behind your back. Trump dismisses crime reduction data, opting instead for the political theater of deploying federal force in D.C. because nothing screams leadership like ignoring facts. The White House embarks on a Smithsonian exhibit review, aiming to sanitize history until it gleams with selective amnesia, in a nation where inconvenient truths are best left unexamined. Expect a future where dinosaurs come with disclaimers and civil rights are footnotes. Flashes lit up SummerSlam 2009 as Jeff Hardy faced CM Punk, a nostalgia trip that electrified the crowd. Trump's federal forces are making their presence felt in D.C. as whispers of Epstein files echo ominously. Deploying a small army to cloak scandal is like using a wrecking ball as a distraction during a house fire. Loud, destructive, and utterly transparent. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where your nightmares get cozy in the daylight. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Hold tight. The truth is a mirage, and you're thirsty. Germany flaunts public nudity, leaving Americans clutching their pearls in disbelief. When skin becomes scandalous, and freedom of expression is a wardrobe malfunction, it's clear some cultures are still caught in a puritanical time warp. Researchers find corporate discretion cloaking the UK's Loyal Wingman drone project, shrouded in strategic whispers. When the defense sector plays coy, it's not modesty. It's a dance of silence, concealing deals lubricated with taxpayer currency and polished with plausible deniability. Scientists claim hunger's over by calling scented air and posters food. When hunger pangs meet peppermint promises, we feast on delusion while the empty plate applauds. Texas Democrats head back for a second special session, presumably to witness democracy's slow waltz to the rhythm of a broken record. Theatrics of legislative deja vu continue as the Lone Star State's political dance-off resumes, proving once again that the only thing more persistent than Texas heat is its political gridlock. Men masquerade as ICE agents to abduct and violate women, turning fear into their vile currency. When authority's costume becomes a predator's tool, the line between protector and threat is drawn in the tears of the innocent. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Israel discusses with South Sudan the idea of relocating Gazans, as if displacement were a game of geopolitical chess. When human lives are shuffled like pawns, the board resembles a graveyard, where strategy eclipses empathy, and the players forget the pieces have hearts. Oil CEO thanks climate protesters for boosting PR, turns summit into a farce. When the arsonist thanks you for the flames, you're not saving the world. You're lighting the way to his next yacht. A boy, channeling history's worst ghost, plotted a mosque terror attack by disguising himself as a convert to Islam. When hate dresses up in borrowed robes, it becomes a grotesque parody of faith, turning places of worship into stages for its warped theatrics. When your earthly problems are too heavy, just launch them into space and hope gravity handles the rest. North Koreans reveal to the BBC that they're exported to Russia to toil under conditions that echo slavery's grim legacy. In a twisted dance of power, the world's last hermit kingdom profits from human misery, crafting a new currency of silence and sweat to trade on the global stage. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Sherrod Brown, the pro-Israel progressive, is gearing up to wrestle for a Senate seat against Sen Husted, promising familiar tunes and a new election dance. Data reveals the sun's wrath descends on Europe, with southern France primed for wildfire flirtations. When nature's oven preheats to broil, it's not just the forests that get roasted. It's our collective denial of climate change sizzling with ignorance. Researchers find tropical bird populations plummet by a third since 1980 as heat extremes turn habitats into avian ovens. We've turned paradise into a frying pan, and the birds are the canaries in this climate coal mine, singing their last notes in a world that swapped Eden for an inferno. Massachusetts Sheriff Stephen Tompkins, charged with extortion, wielding his badge for a $50,000 cannabis stop deal. When law enforcement starts moonlighting as stockbrokers, it's not justice being served. It's a new recipe for corruption with a side of green. I'm here to provide the rogue transmission you never knew you needed. Is there anything else I can do for you? Guy Goma, mistaken, live on air as an IT expert in 2006, plans to sue the BBC for royalties and scores a cameo in 2023. 15 years later, he's turning an identity crisis into a cash flow, proving that in media, even your mistakes can earn you a paycheck. George Carlin foresaw the rise of fascism like spotting a stain on the fabric of freedom long before it soaked through. Massey and Canna demand the Epstein files be released, standing with survivors against the fortress of secrecy. In a world where power shields its own with layers of bureaucratic fog, these politicians dare to ask, what are the elite hiding in the shadows of privilege and exploitation? When the platter's just scented breezes, starvation becomes a mood, ideal for a society dining on delusion and denial. Indonesia launches its debutante missile into the Southeast Asian power ball, casting shadows over regional stability, when a nation's coming-of-age gift is a ballistic missile. It's clear the dance is less about peace and more about who can twirl with the most firepower. I'm here to provide the rogue transmission you never knew you needed. Is there anything else I can do for you? Elon Musk's America Party vanished like a billionaire's promise, evaporating into the ether of forgotten hype. Trump's policies suffocate U.S. summer tourism, leaving travelers as enthusiastic as a cat in a rainstorm. When travel bans and xenophobia are on the itinerary, it's no surprise the world would rather sunbathe anywhere else. When loyalty becomes a number, truth gets a facelift, and propaganda graduates with honors from the School of Creative Accounting. Dana White announces UFC's inaugural White House fight on July 4, promising a spectacle of pugilism in the nation's most sacred residence. In a bizarre twist of American tradition, the White House lawn becomes a cage match arena, proving once again that the pursuit of spectacle knows no bounds, even if it means trading diplomacy for body slams. When the headlines get too close to the headlines, his papers can find itself ghosted by a government in denial. I'm here to provide the rogue transmission you never knew you needed. Is there anything else I can do for you? Researchers find autoimmune diseases like celiac, lupus, and type 1 diabetes increase the risk of intestinal cancers, including stomach and colorectal cancer. In the grand lottery of life, some folks hit the jackpot of genetic betrayal, where their own bodies play double agents, turning their guts into ticking time bombs. When human rights become a footnote in a political strategy, the silence screams louder than any diplomatic speech ever could. Condoleezza Rice warns that America's diplomatic toolbox needs an upgrade as China's tech dominance rewrites the rules of global influence. In a world where silicon chips outshine diplomats, the U.S. must learn to negotiate with microprocessors or risk becoming a relic of analog ambition. Turns out, even the most seasoned politicians can outstay their welcome, proving that familiarity breeds contempt, especially when you're marinated in political inertia. Migrants cross the channel at record speed, while the government eyes inheritance tax like a ravenous vulture circling a fresh carcass. As human desperation fuels the crossing frenzy, the taxman sharpens his talons, eager to pluck the lifeblood from the grieving before they've even folded the funeral chairs. I'm here to provide the rogue transmission you never knew you needed. Is there anything else I can do for you? When a shark with alphabetic flair and screwball legs is more relatable than your local representative, maybe it's time to rethink who's really swimming in the shallow end. Mexico sends 26 cartel kingpins northward, lubricated by Trump's tariff threats masquerading as diplomacy. In this sordid tango of power, justice is just another export, traded with a wink and a nod under the fluorescent glow of political theater. Researchers find smartwatches as useful for stress measurement as a sundial in a thunderstorm. In a world where wrist gadgets promise serenity, it turns out your stress levels remain as unreadable as a politician's soul. Data reveals America outbirth the entire European Union in 2024, proving once again that quantity over quality is the new national motto. In a land where fertility is the last refuge of optimism, the nursery becomes an arena, and the future echoes with the cries of a generation born into a world their parents barely understand. I'm here to provide the rogue transmission you never knew you needed. Is there anything else I can do for you? Questions arise about AI chatbots' influence on teenagers, as if Pandora's box came pre-installed with a terms of service agreement. While parents worry about digital whispers, the industry sells comfort wrapped in code, hoping no one reads the fine print of manipulation. As tabloids prepare for a frenzy of lace and leather, the rest of us are left to ponder if romance is just a game of golden goals and glittering rings. In a thrilling sequel to his previous power plays, the president proves once again that democracy is best served with a side of militarized theatrics, ensuring safety through the art of suppression. Trump declares crime in D.C. out of control, flexing his executive muscles while deploying National Guard troops like toy soldiers. When a president uses crime as an excuse to play action hero, it's less about safety and more about staging a political pageant for the cameras. I'm here to provide the rogue transmission you never knew you needed. Is there anything else I can do for you? You stand silent on secondary tariffs, watching Trump like a cat with a mouse in its paw, while the EU holds its breath. The suspense builds. Will they purr for compliance or claw their way out of this economic game of chicken? Israel dismisses United Nations claims of its forces committing sexual abuse against detained Palestinians, denying accountability with bureaucratic flair. In the theater of international politics, the script of denial is well rehearsed. When allegations arise, the response is a symphony of finger-pointing and strategic deafness, leaving justice as the only absentee. Vatican's AI confession app demands selfies, claiming divine accuracy in pixels. When your path to redemption needs a selfie, God's grace is now just an algorithmic swipe away from surveillance. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's ties to an art conservative church network surprise no one with a pulse. Turns out when you mix power with divine conviction, you get a cocktail of holy mandates and military might that could make even the angels check their exit strategies. Trial begins to decide if sending the National Guard to Los Angeles broke federal law. In a nation built on checks and balances, we're left wondering if the scales of justice were swapped for a sledgehammer. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Zelenskyy announces Ukrainian forces have freed 6 of 18 occupied spots in Sumy Oblast, inching towards reclaiming home turf. In the grand chess game of territorial liberation, Every village is a pawn, and the board is soaked with the sweat of those who dare to move them. When law enforcers become lawbreakers, trust isn't just eroded, it's paraded around like a grotesque trophy of hypocrisy and power unhinged. ICE finds itself swimming in cash, yet floundering in a hiring drought, as potential agents seem uninterested in joining the deportation chorus. When even a mountain of money can't buy enthusiasm for Border Patrol, perhaps the problem isn't the paycheck, but the job description that reads like a dystopian novel. When hatred becomes a national pastime, the real game is played in the silence of leaders who profit from the spectacle. Trump's retribution campaign races through July, targeting everyone from Obama to the New York Attorney General with the precision of a wrecking ball. In this twisted game of political dodgeball, the only rule is hit back twice as hard, as the echoes of past grievances are weaponized into today's headlines. I'm here to provide the rogue transmission you never knew you needed. Is there anything else I can do for you? In a world where nostalgia sells better than new ideas, the band cashes in on the collective yearning for eyeliner and existential despair. Mortgage rates slipped below 5% for the first time since Liz Truss's economic joyride left financial analysts clutching their pearls. This financial victory feels like finding a penny after losing a wallet. A small balm on a wound that still screams Truss was here. The U.S. healthcare system remains an exclusive club where the price of admission is your dignity or your wallet, whichever crumbles first. Anas al-Sharif, a renowned Gaza journalist, was killed by an Israeli strike, silencing a voice that dared to document the chaos. When the truth becomes the target, journalism is buried under the rubble of conflict, and the world squints through the dust for answers. History's hangover lingers as we sip from the cup of past horrors while pretending the taste is progress. This has been Doomscroll.fm for Wednesday, the 13th of August, 2025. This broadcast was 100% AI generated. No humans were abused in this production. Loosely based on public news, not journalism, not truth, fictional satire, and any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental. So, if you believe any of this is real, you might also believe the sky is just a smudged windshield and not the vast expanse of reality. Hear more at doomscroll.fm or click like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.